Welcome, friends, to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. I'm Debbie Georgiani, along with Jerry Usher. And today's show we had planned out and prayed for and picked a topic talking about art and beauty and how it leads us to God. Unfortunately, in light of the attacks that happened in Paris on Friday and all of the media attention that has been around the story and that is continuing to unfold as we speak, we felt that it was a great need for us to switch gears and to change direction and to explore this, what's happening right now in front of us. And it's important, and it's time we kind of put everything aside and really, really talk about what's happening in this world. And it may seem far away in Paris, but actually it's happening here in the United States as well. And so it's important for us to discuss it. So we are changing topics for today. We will put the art and beauty topic later on in the month or in early December. So we won't forget about that, because that's an interesting conversation for us to have as well in order for us to grow closer to God. But right now, immediate attention is drawn on to the people of Paris, France, and what's happening there right now, because it's truly just alarming and startling and shocking, and it's just incredibly sad. And it's time for all of us to really talk about it. Jerry?
Yeah, it's funny. It's not often. I like to say it's not often, excuse me, when I am somewhat at a loss for words. And, I don't know what the latest exact numbers are. It really doesn't matter. In the end, are there 140 dead, 141? Of course, it matters for those individuals and their families. I don't mean that, but just the scope, the magnitude of this. It makes you have to stop. It almost takes your breath away, Debbie. Mm-hmm. It did for me anyway. And, we want to hear from you, our listeners, today. Just your thoughts on this. I mean, humanity doing this to humanity. We did a show just last week. How have we become so violent? And I think that was that Wednesday's show, I think, Wednesday or Thursday. And then on Friday, This happens. And folks, it just really is absolutely astonishing. It's almost like sport, the shooters, the killers approach this almost like it's sort of like a video game, or they're going out, hunting for jackrabbits or something. Total, absolute disregard of the earth of the human person. And Debbie, right there within that statement, I think is a key nugget of what we could talk about today. And that is, to a large extent, we have lost a sense of human dignity.
We sure have. And, Jerry, I just want to kind of recap for our listeners. I'm sure you've heard about it all over the news. Pretty much every media outlet is reporting on it. But these coordinated gun and suicide bombing attacks that happened in Paris, France on Friday evening, where they attacked a concert hall and right outside of a stadium. They were, their timing was a little bit off, so they detonated the bombs outside of the stadium, and then opening fire in Paris cafes, all coordinated, to really shut down such a beautiful and magnificent, a city. And what they did was really stunned and stifled a city. And how they were able to do that is it's beyond me, because I think what's really shocking for me, Jerry, as a parent, is that I just can't. In this day and age when we have such sophisticated technology and all sorts of tracking devices and things that we can make sure we stop things before they happen. How did we allow this? How did we allow this to get to this point? I mean, earlier in the month, or in October, in Oregon, we had the shooting where that man went in and lined up students, asked them if some of them if they were Christian, and then shot them. How is this happening? And you know what? What is our response as adults? What should we be saying to our teens? What should we be saying to our youth? Because these terrorists are recruiting our teens. They're recruiting our young, innocent youth here in the United States. They're recruiting them. They are taking them from their homes and turning them into monsters. And yes, I will say monsters, and yes, I will say terrorists, because that's what it is. And it's truly when we name it what it is, then we know how to combat it. If you don't name it, you don't know what you're fighting. You don't know what you're combating. So I really would love to ask our listeners, please weigh in on this. Share your takes on how can we talk to our teens? How should we equip our teens? How do we even talk about this in the public setting, in our social setting? 1-800-585-9396.
Yeah, other questions that we can discuss with your takes on the program today. We hear pious platitudes from our government and governments around the world. Are they really truly concerned? Are they really doing something to make a difference here? A lot of people put the French colors on, yesterday during football games, teams running out with the French flag. And I get all of that. But is it, I mean, what is that doing to ultimately help? I'm not saying we shouldn't do it, but what is that doing to ultimately help the situation? And here's something, too, I want to put out there. I think I've mentioned something similar on our show before. We used to think that situations like this happened way over there somewhere. It was over there. It was the Middle East. It was their issue. They had to deal with it. It was their tragedies. Over here, we just continued with life pretty much as normal. Well, Paris is considered part of the West, and we're in the West, of course. And there's a growing, don't want to point the fingers only at radical Muslims, but it seems like ISIS is behind a lot of this. So I pose this question for your takes on the program today. If you were in charge of, say, a Catholic church, just pretend you were a pastor for a minute, would you do anything to prepare your parish, your church, your parish school, perhaps, to be ready for something, God forbid it should ever happen? But I'll tell you, Debbie, it's not just this weekend and very recently, but for a long time now. I won't say that I go to attend Mass on the weekend feeling nervous or anything like that, but there are times when I'll sit there and I think, what if it were to happen here? Because it's happening in churches in Africa, it's happening in churches in Syria and Iraq, and now Paris, places like that. Is our day coming? So, we have these air marshals on airplanes. You don't know who they are, and they don't want you to know who they are, but they're carrying their weapons for the protection of the people in case something happened. Debbie, are we getting near the day? I ask this just for the input of our listeners, and maybe, Debbie, your thoughts. Are we getting close to the day when maybe we at our churches we have to do that? I know a lot of people would say, "Oh, no, absolutely not," because then that's bringing guns into a church setting. But what would happen if 100 or 200 members of your parish had their lives taken in an incident like this? Then what will we do? So these are just questions that I think should generate some conversation today.
Well, the phone lines are lighting up, but there's only one open phone line, so that could be for you. We want to hear your take on this. We're talking about what happened in France of the terrorist attack that happened on Friday. It was a coordinated series of attacks that really just paralyzed Paris, France. And we want to hear from you. Should we be talking to our teens? Should we be, being proactive, like Jerry, like you had maybe shared with us, that possibly we should be doing in our own home parishes right now to prepare? We're not trying to be alarmists. We're trying to prepare. So share your take on this at 1-800-585-9396. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to go right to the phones, and we're really going to talk about this and explore this idea of how we should prepare. We don't want to be alarmists, obviously. We don't want to, take it into the extreme as the enemies are. But we do want to be prepared. Stay with us. We're going to be right back on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. We're talking about what happened in Paris, France. Stay with us.
60 Seconds with Mother Angelica.
We need to pray for the gift of knowledge, not just knowledge of our faults, but knowledge of God. Do you know God? Or is he just somebody that you go to when you're in trouble? And this gift of knowledge is a certain amount of detachment. Oh, we don't want to hear about that, do you? We're attached to everything, little things, silly things, chairs. Don't sit in my chair. Why? Because it just fits me. It doesn't fit you. You're too fat. Well, if you ever said that to somebody, you're attached to what? A chair. You can be attached to God, and you can love everybody. You can love your children and love your parents and love even your enemies. But attachments take the soul out of your heart.
The people you know and trust are on EWTN.
Welcome back, dear listeners, to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network. We had a planned topic for today talking about art and beauty and how it leads us to God. But in light of what's happened with the terrorist attacks in Paris, France, we felt it important to talk about what we can do here at home to prepare, to really talk about what's happening and how we could maybe help, whether it's in prayer, or if it's in conversation or education, or even just getting our teens equipped for what they could possibly face. You know, we have a lot of teens that study abroad. And like Geraldo Rivera, I mean, his daughter, I believe, he went over there to Paris, France to pick her up. She was right in one of the, I think, if I'm not mistaken, in the concert hall, I believe. So, I believe she was in the concert hall. And he went over there to pick her up. We have a lot of teens studying over in other countries, and it's important for us to prepare our youth and to also continue to educate. So we're going to move right along to Oscar, who's been waiting patiently in Portland, Oregon, listening on Sirius XM 130. Oscar, welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Hi.
Hi, Oscar. What's up?
I was reflecting on what happened in 911 and 211 and in this incident in Paris, and I just want to make mention that I'm a revert, and even though I had 12 years of Catholic education and so on, I wandered off. You know, I'm the only one of 7 siblings that left the church for 7 years, but returned, thank God. But anyway, I had to go back to the seminary for formation because I had a lot of anger issues growing up. You know, and I'm ashamed to say I'm the worstest one in my family. But the long and short of it is that it took me 2.5 years to read into the life of St. Francis. And he mentioned one thing one time that took me months to figure out what he meant by that. And he had been resisting invitations from this bishop, you know, after his conversion, to visit his residence and that. And so finally, one day he gave in and, you know, and accepted the hospitality in that. But while he was there, he felt that, you know, his friars minors were you know, having stones as pillows or whatever, you know. So he got up and left, and he came to this empty church and that. And during that time, he was beat up by these demons and that, and he called them ministers.
Hey, Oscar, let me jump in for a second here. Are you leading up to a point related to our topic today? Just want to make sure.
Yes, because what happened in 911 and that, the following day there was 0 abortions in New York, and the churches were packed. Mm-hmm. And the long and short of it is that with all this verbal engineering, like the word Planned Parenthood, calling evil good, good evil, and politically correct, and all this stuff, it's like calling arsenic chocolate or liquid nitrogen cola, But the industrialized nations are becoming wastelands morally, and there's a wake-up call that we have to call a spade a spade. And
all right, Oscar. I think we've got the gist of what he's saying, Debbie. Maybe what he's trying to say is, our nation and many others have become godless and have turned away from God and morality and so forth, and therefore things like this are going to happen on occasion.
Right. And I think it also has to do with what I said at the beginning of the show, Jerry, when we have to call it what it is. If it's a terrorist attack, call it a terrorist attack. Don't say it's a few kids who got together and did this or whatever, however you want to spin it. It's a terrorist attack. And when you have a terrorist attack, now you can address it and now you can combat it with the right means. But you can't fight something if you don't know what it is, or if you kind of spray all over the place like darts on a dartboard and you don't know where you're going to or what the pinpoint is. How are you supposed to really treat it? I mean, you look at a disease, any type of illness, you have to name it. You can't just say somebody has cancer somewhere in the body and try to treat it. You have to name it, and you have to specifically name it, and then you have to treat it appropriately. And that's what I think the problem is. I think the PC police has taken over this world, and we have now, Oscar, if I may, it sounds like you were saying, we're not really pinpointing it directly and saying what it is. And I think the moment we start to do that as Christians, maybe we will start to see immediate change and not have this keep happening. Maybe it's a lesson for us all to learn, to start calling it for what it is. Oscar, I hope we hit the mark on this. Thank you for taking the time, and thank you for waiting, and thank you for calling in. You were the first one on Take Two, and we're very glad you were. And thank you for starting this conversation. Okay.
All right, thanks, Oscar. We're going to go next to Catherine in New Jersey, listening also on Sirius XM 130. Hello, Catherine. Welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for taking my call. And yesterday I went to 3 masses. I was just moved to go to Mass all day. And only one priest out of 3 included this evil in his homily, which I found, kind of sad. Yes, there was prayers of the faithful for the people in parish, but there was only one priest out of 3 that was willing to call evil evil, and to remind us that the Blessed Mother has told us time and time again and appeared for centuries to tell us to pray the rosary, that it's a forgotten form of prayer, to bring the change into the minds and the hearts of people that we need. And another thing about the, I think the priest need to start naming things for what they are as well, and calling for an urgency and a boldness in the Christians and in Catholics to start taking a stand in their communities for right and for wrong, and calling things as they are. Mother Angelica reminds us that, how the enemy gets a stronghold is by, when we don't call evil evil, that's how the enemy gets a stronghold. It becomes this, ambiguous thing that we can't really name, we're not really sure, but that's how the foothold gets taken place. And I believe that our churches are going to end up being safe havens in times of crisis. So I do believe that our parishes need to prepare as people and as facilities and as a community providing the basics. I think they have to prepare for that. And there's 2 other points I want to make. One is that the pundits on TV and on the news, it's talk, talk, talk. But we as Americans need to start remembering that we hire these people, and we need to make those phone calls to our congressmen, and we need to make ourselves known. And we can talk forever, but until we require the government to do what we need. And how many people literally pick up the phone and call their congressman? Not many. We just sit around and talk to each other.
Well, Catherine,
my last point is that the reason there's so much recruiting of our children is because obviously the crisis of the family, and that our children are looking and they're oriented towards the internet and social media to gather answers for their life, rather than reaching to their parents for the answers or reaching to their churches for the answers.
Well, Catherine, you make some amazing points, and I think you're driving this conversation in a very good direction, because it's a conversation that we've needed to have, and it's long overdue. I think for the majority of us listening today, we can probably say that the majority of us agree that we have to name it. Just like you said, Mother Angelica said, you have to call evil in order to, combat it. I mean, and that is so true. It's true in everything we do in this world. And I think that, Catherine, you really helped to confirm some of the feelings that we have started to discuss in the intro of the show, Jerry and I, about how it's important for us to prepare. We don't want to be alarmists. Nobody wants to be an alarmist. That's like the worst thing in the world, because, you're living in fear, you're pushing fear onto other people. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about being prepared, because now this real threat has become a reality. And so what are we going to do about it as Christians? There is definitely a war on Christianity. It's obvious. Our Chaldean brothers and sisters are being beheaded. They are faithful Christians, and they're being beheaded. So what does that mean for us? Are we supposed to sit here and just pray? Absolutely. We're supposed to just pray. But what can we be doing? And I think you brought up some interesting topics. Catherine, thank you so much for making that call today to Take Two. Jerry, I know you wanted to jump in.
Well, as always, EWTN Catholic Radio, our Facebook page, is very, very busy right now. If you are listening and you can't call into the program, but you would like to weigh in with your take, just go on to that Facebook page. Just look for EWTN Catholic Radio. Like us while you're there. And then you can post your comment or email it to take2@EWTN.com. Many, many people, excuse me, as you might imagine, are calling on Our Lady of Lourdes for help. Alina said, please pray for us, Our Lady of Lourdes, and all the dangers in the world, especially Paris. Amen. Bob says, yes, pray, but also teach them the church has endured over 1,300 years of sporadic violence and aggression at the hands of Islam. Teach them that there is little difference between Islam and death cults like Jonestown, that these incidents are not anomalies but manifestations of their doctrines. Teach them the truth. That's what Bob says on our Facebook page. What say you, our listeners? 1-800-585-9396. Debbie, maybe we can just reset the topic and what it is that we're talking about today for those people who just tuned in.
Well, and obviously in light of what's happened Friday in Paris, France, with the very, coordinated effort, the gun and suicide bombing attacks in Paris at the cafes and at the concert hall and at the stadium, and with the killing of 129 people, injuring more than 300, and there's still, it's just a chaos over there in Paris, France, trying to figure out what's up. And you know what? I'll tell you, this is serious times, because that should never have happened in that city, but it did, and it stunned the city. It shut down the city. And it's time for us to really start to wake up and realize this is a real definite threat to all of us. There's that music. We can't move this break. When we come back, we're going to continue to talk about what happened in Paris, France, and also what's happening here in the United States with terrorist attacks. What can we do to prepare our youth, to prepare all of us? We know to pray, but there's more we can do. Stay with us. We'll be right back on Take Two.
It's the start of a new day for Morning Catholic Radio.
Another thing to rediscover is there are just some things we used to call them acts of God. One time I had a very angry parishioner who was pointing to the parking lot and blaming me for all this ice at the other end. It had rained and it was freezing rain overnight. And I looked back at her and I said, I swear I didn't do it.
Morning Glory, Catholic from the start. Weekday mornings, 7 Eastern on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
Have you ever heard the phrase, if God would stop thinking of you, you would lapse into nothingness? Well, it's true. This refers to God being the continuous creator or ultimate fulfiller of the necessary conditions for our existence. The reasoning is as follows. 1. Every conditioned reality is ultimately dependent right here and right now upon unconditioned reality for the fulfillment of its conditions. 2. This radical dependency is present at every moment one can say the conditioned reality exists. 3. There can only be one unconditioned reality. 4. Therefore, the one unconditioned reality, God, is the continuous creator of all else that is. In other words, at every moment you and I exist, we are sustained in being by the one God. Something to be grateful for? I think an amen is in order for that one. I'm Carlo Broussard with your Magis Minute, the Magis Center at magiscenter.com.
EWTN is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If your cable or satellite provider doesn't carry EWTN's full programming lineup, give them a call and let them know you would like to receive EWTN 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
For more information, go to EWTN.com and click on Television.
Take Two with Jerry and Debbie and you. You are the important part of the program, as always, every day, right here on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network. 1-800-585-9396. What are we to make of what happened throughout France on Friday? Really, to me, I mean, it's just alarming that not only that this could happen in one particular spot, but all the different coordinated attacks. Just how none of those, I guess, were detected by any authorities or whatever. I'm not in law enforcement. I'm not in, sort of government secret service. I don't know how they operate. But, with all the vigilance and security nowadays, that's a head scratcher for me, literally. Also, how do we react to this? Prayer, obviously. But what do we do, on our own turf here to maybe hopefully fend off something like this? Or what if it were to happen? 800-585-9396. A lot of calls here. We're going to go next to, Karen in California. Karen, listening to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Welcome to the program, Karen. How are you?
I'm good. I'm saddened by the events that are happening around the world, and I am praying about it. I felt that to really understand what's going on, I watched a presentation on the TED Talk of a man who is the son of the terrorists, and he talked about how they are trained in childhood to learn hate and prejudice and bigotry. I think that's important to know because it's our attitudes, it's our ideologies, it's all that creates this hatred that wants to express itself in this evil way. That really opened up my understanding of it. And I think that hate is taught and that we need to start, teaching love and teaching more positive things in our own family to stop our own, pettiness in our own lives in regard to bullying and expressing our anger inappropriately. And maybe we can change not only our own families, but the world and how we think and act and behave.
Yeah, Karen, just a couple of things I want to comment on. I know Debbie would love to weigh in as well. I think I was thinking about this too, actually, over the weekend. It's funny you'd mention it, Karen, that and it's a common. It's not an unfamiliar principle. It shouldn't be to any of us, but if we want peace in the world, that peace really has to start with me. I have to be at peace with God. I have to be at peace with my fellow men and women. And striving to live holiness and to be in a state of grace. That is going to be the starting point for me personally. From there, then I can be involved in circles that widen out further than myself to help make a difference. But this analogy just came to my mind, not too long ago, and we still see these videos of Planned Parenthood, being videotaped. And their leaders talking about the exchange and sale of aborted fetal body parts in such a caustic, casual way, like they're just, like they're picking out a sandwich at the deli or something. It's just so casual and it's just awful. If any people can view the most vulnerable, the most innocent in that way, and I'm talking about, of course, unborn babies, then we shouldn't be surprised that attacks like this could happen because, as we talked about at the start of the show, Debbie, the sense of the worth of the human person is just almost gone in our culture today. It's just really sad.
Well, Jerry-Ann, you bring up a really good point. I just wanted to, if Karen's still listening, I wanted to just kind of throw this in there as well. You talk about targeting the most vulnerable, and obviously the children in the womb are the most vulnerable, absolutely. And then you look at Catholics. I don't know if you've been listening to all the media reports, but all around the world, they're talking about how the reason why Catholics are easy targets is we tend to be very peaceful people. We're not real fighters. We know we have especially Catholics that practice their Catholicism are very, we know hopefully where we're headed. We have a strong conviction and a strong belief in Jesus and the promises of the gospel message. And so we're not a real, fighting people. And so we're vulnerable. And so hate is going to be thrust upon us. But my question is, and I would love to get into the practical tools of it. How do we prepare our youth? Because they're the ones that are going to have to take this in the next generations. I mean, this is a real problem, and radical Islam has as the one social media person who weighed in saying it's been around for centuries. We know that, but right now we have immediate threats that are affecting all over the world. So what are we going to do about it in addition to prayer? And yes, I do believe we need to ramp up our prayer, round the clock. But what are we going to take action with? And Karen, maybe the two comments, if you could add another comment to Jerry's and my takes on it. Karen, if you wanted last minute comments.
Well, all I know is that I have 5 adult children, and it's what I'm going to teach them about love and forgiveness to others, and to each other. Mm-hmm. And teach them about what hate is and how that affects, each of us in the world negatively. It's that truth about that, and just to prepare them by, like you were talking about, knowing the realities of the world and life and what's going on in our world, mm-hmm. calling it what it is, and hopefully they can make the right choices in their life.
Right. Right. And Karen, you know what I love about what you said? And I think that's so great, teaching it in your home, because that is your mini world. And that's what's going to spread into the bigger world. And I do believe it is so important for us to, like you just said, and how we have been saying throughout the show, prepare and equip our teens so that they know, so that they can go in as strong Christians, as convicted Christians, and we give them the tools to let them know, and to deep inside of their core being, that whatever they're faced with, whatever hate is in front of them, they can hold on deeply and strongly, like our Chaldean Catholic brothers and sisters hold on to their faith and take it all the way all the way to the end, whether it's an end that ends in their life passing, or an end that ends that maybe they can make some changes in this world. Either way. But Karen, I thank you for that call. You really helped us get it back on target of what we kind of wanted to discuss today. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Karen.
1-800-585-9396. Take two with Jerry and Debbie. 800-585-9396. What's your take on the insanity that unfolded on that Friday? It's just hard to believe, for anyone who was there, it had to be just like out of the worst sort of horror movie going on. Unfortunately, it was real, and a lot of lives were lost, and a lot of people are injured, many of them critically, and of course families are ruined now because of this. And how do we make sense of it? How do we make something good out of it? I guess I don't know. God can bring good out of anything, but I think you got to look deep into this one to find that. We're going to go next to Michigan, Sirius XM 130. Patty is listening there in Michigan to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Hi, Patty.
Hi. How are you?
Better now that you called, Patty.
Good. You kind of just touched on what I was going to talk about. But what I was going to say is Mother Teresa, who we know has gone for a number of years now, I believe she said that abortion will lead to nuclear war. And I believe she said that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but unborn babies are that important. And we really need to focus on that and educate even older people to see the gift of life, and that all this bombing and retaliation bombing, and they were announcing on the radio that it could be the beginning of World War III. And so I think Mother Teresa has something there with the comment that abortion is going to lead to nuclear war.
Well, and you know what? I have heard this before. I've heard it attributed to Mother Teresa before. In fact, we mentioned this on this program. We don't know for sure if she actually said this. I think the principle is one that I think could make sense. I mean, if you, again, as we talked about earlier, I mean, if you are willing to go into a mother's womb and kill the baby there, where aren't you willing to go to kill somebody? And I was looking on EWTN.com website, and there is this question. A woman named Julie in 2010 asked the same question you just did, Patty. And her answer was the answer that she got. There's a URL to a website, but the person who answered it said the closest I could come to the quote that you proposed was February 1997 at the National Prayer Breakfast in Washington, D.C., where Mother Teresa said, "What is taking place in America is a war against the child, and if we accept that the mother can kill her own child, how can we tell other people not to kill one another?" So in a sense, it is analogous to what you said, although I don't know the veracity of whether Mother actually went as far as to say what you said, Patty, although I've heard it attributed to her before. But Debbie, do you have some thoughts on that?
No, I think it's a wake-up call for all of us. I mean, our saints and our living saints that are walking on this earth right now are giving us warnings and telling us that this could happen. You know, when we start to commit one intrinsic evil, when we start to be a part of an intrinsic evil, it's going to, trigger so many more things happening, and kind of all the gates are open, and now it's killing and murdering and disrespecting of the human being from all aspects. So I think I think it's a wake-up call for all of us. We've got to wake up and figure out how we can get this back on track, and pretty quickly, because lives depend on it. So thank you, Patty. Thank you for that call, and thank you for that take on that.
Appreciate hearing from you, Patty, very much. Please keep listening to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Keep us in your prayers. We promise that we will do likewise for you. Next stop is Southern California. Deacon Raymond, listening on Sirius XM 130. Deacon Raymond, thank you for calling Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Hey, Jerry and Debbie. How y'all doing?
Pretty
Doing
well,
well,
Deacon.
thank
Thanks
you.
be to God. Thank you for your diaconate.
Thank you. I'll be actually celebrating the third anniversary tomorrow.
Oh, happy
praise God.
anniversary.
Thank you. One of the things that I've been seeing is that there was a double suicide bombing in Beirut on Thursday, the day before this tragedy happened in Paris, and nobody's talking about it. Mm-hmm. In fact, there was I read an article that was written by a Lebanese woman, and she said that the second bombing was actually a man who had the suicide vest on and was headed towards a mosque and was tackled by another man who prevented him from getting into that mosque. And had that not happened, there would have been hundreds, actually more people killed than what was done in Paris. To me, the West is failing in not seeing the humanity of all, the dignity of all who are being killed by these extremists who are not all Muslim, as it were. ISIS is not a Muslim organization, although there's plenty of Muslims in it. These are a bunch of thugs who have no God but their own thirst and their own bloodlust. That's the only thing that they follow. And for me, Debbie, you made a statement about Catholics being rather pacifist. Now, my wife is from Mexico, and she had family who were killed in the Cristero War back in the 1920s because they were Catholic, and they would not, follow what Calles, who was president at the time, they didn't follow. And when they came confronted, they cried out, "Viva Cristo Rey, Viva la Virgen de Guadalupe." So, there was an armed resistance against the Calles laws, which were unjust. But it wasn't necessarily the armed resistance that stopped those laws. It was the blood of the martyrs who stood up to Calles and said, God first, country second. And unfortunately, we have a lot of Catholics in this country who are saying, USA first, God second. I'm a proud American. I am proud to be an American. I am a natural-born citizen of this country. But doggone it, the price has been paid for my salvation, and that price was far above anything that this country can or has done.
Yeah, Deacon Raymond, beautiful. Thank you for the call. Passionate. You are correct on so many points. I've just written a couple things down that I want to share a reflection or two on, but I want to echo what you said and join you, and that is I am very, very quick to say that I am a Catholic American, or Catholic, or born in the United States of America. But I don't consider myself, an American Catholic. I like to say I am a Catholic American. Whoever you are, if you are a Catholic Christian, then you are first and foremost a Catholic, because our associations, our marriages are going to not perdure into heaven. Our citizenry is not going to make a bit of difference when we get to heaven. Everything in heaven is going to be about, were we a member of the family of God? So I appreciate your saying that, Deacon Raymond. And Debbie, I think he's got a good point. We focused the show today on the attacks in Paris, of course, but yeah, the ones in Beirut, where it looks like there were some heroes, especially one individual who tackled a suicide bomber, and I actually like to call them homicide bombers, and lost his life and probably saved the lives of many other people. And it is possible that we paint with too broad a brush. We say ISIS, we associate it with Islam and so forth. What we have in many cases are a bunch of knuckleheads, even from this country, who aren't finding those things that are challenging them, challenging their manhood, their masculinity, what have you. They latch on to some ideology and they look for a place for an outlet for that, and they say, oh, there it is over there. And so they rush off and they join that as well. So yeah, it probably, Debbie, is not all Muslims, per se. It just unfortunately, I guess, gets lumped in altogether. But what are your thoughts, Deb?
Well, it looks like Deacon has dropped off, so thank you so much, Deacon, and happy anniversary. It sounds like to me, I would have loved to have asked him, it sounds like to me, in answer to the question, that we really need to prepare our youth to possibly be, prepared to be martyrs. To really be prepared, because that is a way, for us to stand up and to stand up bravely and to help continue to, keep the faith going strong. So, maybe that's what we need to do, is really in our parish communities and our parish groups, pose the idea that this could happen, like it's happened in the past. And so I wouldn't see. Here's where the slippery slope comes in, and the fine line is that, we don't want to scare the children into thinking that Christianity is something, that is so horrific to learn about, but yet it's important that we do. And also, I just wanted to share too that in response to Deacon's comments, and in addition to, there's attacks going on in Africa all over the place that are not being reported as well. So, we have it closing in all around the world with what's happening to be, whatever you want to call it, radical something that is attacking. Okay, so we have to do something to, to not respond is part of the problem. How do we respond? We have to do something. So either ramp our prayer up, either, like previous caller said, call our leadership. Maybe it's our leadership that's not leading well, which I personally think that's the case. But you know what? We've got to do something. We can't sit here and just wait for it to kind of encompass us and take us over. That's my thought. That's my personal opinion. Jerry?
Yeah, again, Deacon, thanks for the call. Just one last point. I think we have to look at the media as really kind of a culprit in a lot of this, because I watch very little news, because I find that if you log on to your whatever email service you use, if you log on to it, if it's Google or Yahoo or whatever, you're going to get the headlines that you need. And this was the first I had heard. I'm so sick of how the news is reported. I just watch or follow so little of it, but you seem to get enough. However, I had not heard about the Beirut attack until this morning. And so the media are selective. The way that they report things, there's so much bias in the media, and that's another topic altogether. But we're just up against so many different obstacles here. We have to be vigilant at all times. And next we're going to go to Christine, who is in Indianapolis, Catholic Radio Indy. Thanks for calling Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Christine, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for taking my call. And I was just listening to you, and I say ditto absolutely what the deacon says and what you, Jerry, and what Debbie said, frankly. And I'm a mother of two young adults, and to think of the fact that my children, may need to be prepared to be martyred, that's a hard pill to swallow. But then I'm also, and I'll have to admit this is totally off topic of what I was going to say, but as a mother, I am reminded of stories we've heard of children in Syria and so on that have come through. I remember there was a nun that was undercover that was on EWTN who talked about how children are being crucified and their parents made to watch. Those children are not denying the faith. They are standing firm. Our children can do it. But they need to see strong leadership from the parents. And so all of that aside, I am a very proud, brand new American citizen as of a week and a half ago. It took me about 25 years, but here I am. I'm the wife of a soldier. I am a former British soldier and the mother of a soldier right now. I am very frustrated with the fact that we are selective, and you were very right to link this with the way we treat abortion and the killing of children in this country. Often we're horrified at the innocent killing of children who might be playing with guns or pretend guns. We're horrified when a mother is murdered and she's carrying a baby in her womb, and we say, the baby, it was a double murder. But we're not horrified when children are aborted daily, and we're not horrified enough by these videos that have come out. basically it all comes down to a very self-centered viewpoint that, frankly, that's what we have developed in the West. So long as I'm okay and I'm comfortable and my family's okay, we're not willing to stand up for diddly. And that's what it's going to take, is leadership from the family to teach people to think outside of themselves and the comfort of their own family. We have to recognize that the pain of the people in Syria is our pain too. If we consider ourselves one body in Christ, their suffering is our suffering. And yes, sometimes the only weapon we have is prayer, but that is the most powerful. I remember a very good priest here at Our Lady of the Greenwood who told me in compassion, I'm not saying anything, but he said, never underestimate the power of one Hail Mary. That's my point.
Well, absolutely. Thank you so much for that call. And I think that may be our short take for the day. We pick a call from every program and put what we call a short take up on the website, take2show.com. But so much there, Debbie, and I know you have been just drilling the point in on the show, Debbie, today. Family, 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 kids, kids, kids. It's really got to start with education, with prayer, with holiness as individuals, but then, of course, within the family unit. I know you're so big on that, Debbie, and I know that was music to your ears.
I am, and I love that call, Christine. Thank you so much for that. And Antoinette and Sam and Anna Maria and the rest, please keep the conversation going. You have some great points. We saw some of your comments. We would love to hear from you. You can post it on Facebook or at take2show.com. We want to keep it going. But I just want to leave my takeaway, Jerry, is that I just feel strongly from being in religious education that we've got to, again, prepare our youth and do it in a way that allows them to feel very, affirmed and supported by us as adults. And that our leaders, we have to pray for our leaders that they are going to make the right decisions so that our youth have a chance. You know, I'm 50. I can say it now. I'm 50. I feel like I'm on borrowed time. I really do. And so I want to really pray for the youth. Jerry, your takeaway?
Yeah, my takeaway is there's so much more to this. I saw a post on social media. I'm trying to find it again from, I believe it was John in Fargo. Made the good point that, Muslims are killing Muslims. They've been at it for a long time. He talked about outside intervention by governments like ours. He says they're just fighting for their freedom. Well, there's a lot of dynamics that go into this, but the point is, I want to get back to what we started the show with. Human dignity. Where has it been lost? How are we going to get back a sense of the worth of the human person?
Well, tomorrow, dear listeners, we want you to join us on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie, but until then, please have a prayerful, beautiful, and blessed day. See you tomorrow.